This is the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast, the #1 place for people who want to launch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. My name is Nalin, and I invite you to join me for tips, hacks, and insights to get you launched and fully funded. Hey everyone, welcome to another session of the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here today and to really talk to you about crowdfunding and how you can absolutely crush your goal on Kickstarter and absolutely crush your goal on Indiegogo. I think today I'm going to be talking about kind of how to figure out who to work with, how to figure out who kind of like you want to work with, and like from our side, who we as kind of crowdfunding consultants want to work with too, right? It's kind of a two-way relationship. So let's start off with that, right? Consulting. So what I do is pretty much crowdfunding consulting. I help people kind of guide their way in terms of like what they should be looking at, where they should be going, what kind of like crowdfunding pitfalls they might be getting themselves into by going down whatever path they're on right now. And so, yeah, like this consulting stuff, this crowdfunding consulting stuff, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. Like people are vetting me as a person, as a crowdfunding consultant, as someone who's, interested in helping people. And I'm also kind of vetting them as like, the people, the creators, entrepreneurs, I'm vetting them as like, hey, do I want to work with these people? Is this project interesting to me? Is this something that I can, make a difference with? Is this something that, is morally kind of good? Or is it something that I, kind of want to go to sleep or wake up thinking about? Right. So a lot of times, unfortunately, people come to myself and other kind of crowdfunding consultants and kind of agencies and say, hey, I have this project, I have this product, and help me, just do it. Just like make this happen. Right. And sometimes I see that, sometimes and I guess other people too, see that they're not, I don't know what it is, but it seems like they're not very invested in the actual crowdfunding project itself. They're interested in like the end goal rather than the process. And that kind of is a red flag to me, because to me, crowdfunding is so personal. Crowdfunding is something that you're really like getting to know a lot of your backers, a lot of your potential fans, and gaining their trust and earning their trust, right? Because they'll be paying you for something that isn't on the market yet. They're paying you for something that doesn't exist yet. They're paying you for like all these, for this thing that they want you to make. And when creators come to me and they're not invested in the crowdfunding process itself, they're not sold on crowdfunding as a means to like get people together and kind of rally a crowd and bring like a really passionate audience together. When people come to me and they're not sold on that, I kind of get turned off by it, just because crowdfunding is just so personal. Like I don't know how to like explain this, but like I feel like it's a little offensive in a way when the people who come to me and they're like, hey, I just want you to help me take this, and I want to see the end goal, period, right? They don't care about the messy middle, right? The messy middle is honestly the fun part. And the messy middle is honestly that part where you're in this period of time, this like utopian period of time where everything you talk about and everything you do when it comes to your project is like ideal, right? It's like all the ideals and all you wish and hope and all the aspirations that you have, you can talk about that and people will rally around that. And people want to kind of believe in that, and people want to kind of follow you and follow your vision for that. Like the other day I was having a conversation with one of the creators I worked with before to help him launch his own business, his own online, well, I guess it's now a business. It's like an online supermarket, and it's now a business. It's a thriving business months after the Kickstarter campaign ended. But I was talking to him, and it's actually on the podcast now. You can check out the podcast. It's the first interview that I actually put on the podcast. There'll be more interviews on the podcast, by the way, coming up. But anyways, it's the first interview on the podcast. And we were talking about Kickstarter. And we were talking about how during that phase of Kickstarter, it's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful time where you literally just get to talk to backers and you all get to dream together. You all get to dream together about what the project can be, what kind of things are going to be released, like what kind of fun, new, exciting ideas, and what the vision is for the company, what the vision is for the product, what the vision is for the project, right? Like it's this really idealistic time. And when people come to me and they're like, I don't care about the crowdfunding campaign, I don't care about that, what happens in that messy middle, I just want you to get this thing launched and funded, it kind of breaks my heart, It breaks my heart because crowdfunding is it's so genuine, and literally you have connections and relationships you can have relationships with all these people who are just so excited to back this project and just spend their hard-earned money, on something that doesn't exist, and they just want to help you bring it to life. And yeah, so when someone comes to me and they say, I don't care about the messy middle, I just care about, that end goal, it breaks my heart. So that's kind of one thing. A lot of other crowdfunding consultants that I know in the space, there's a lot of us, so also kind of feel the same way. They want to work with people who are passionate about crowdfunding, because this is what we do for a living, guys. This is what we do for a living. We do this every single day, right? We wake up and we talk to people, and we want to help them launch their dreams and launch their ideas. And we use crowdfunding as a means to do that. We use crowdfunding as kind of a tool, a vehicle to help people launch their dreams. And when people don't see the importance of crowdfunding to their audience, their fans, the people who might, will love their project, they don't see the importance of crowdfunding to us as crowdfunding consultants. It kind of breaks my heart. And so kind of from our perspective here, yeah, you don't have a passion for crowdfunding, don't crowdfund, right? Like go use another method to launch, right? So I guess this is like who is right for crowdfunding too, right? If you don't like crowdfunding, if you don't live and breathe kind of what crowdfunding creators like want to do, if you don't live and breathe like, hey, rallying your fans, like wanting to talk to your fans every single day, like talking about your vision, being super excited to like have that one-on-one access with your backers, like if you don't live and breathe that, take a different route. Like crowdfunding is just a method to launch a product. It is not the end all be all of a successful business, right? Like getting successfully funded doesn't mean you have a successful business. Getting funded just means you have funds to make something, right? So yeah, if you don't have the passion for like building community, if you don't have the want or the need to, talk to your fans and like be on Facebook and talk on Twitter and like, post stuff on Instagram or have the dreams to just kind of talk to people in that way, don't launch on crowdfunding. Launch elsewhere, because there's a lot of people who care deeply about crowdfunding, myself included. There's a lot of people who care a lot about the experience people have with crowdfunding. And if you just really want your product to the market, you don't care about this middle stuff, go elsewhere. So that's from our perspective. Another thing to really keep in mind really is like we like working with people who are willing to put in the work, right? Yeah, if you go to an agency, there's big name agencies out there. You can Google crowdfunding agency. There's a lot of agencies out there. If you want to go work with an agency and you have the budget to do so, then yeah, you just hand your little product, little baby over to them and they'll do all the work, right? They'll just be like, oh, you want to launch this pen? This smart pen that does this and glides, it flies, you have a remote control. Like if you have a product, right, and you want to work with an agency, yeah, you don't have to do anything at all, right? You can just hand it to them and you can like get on calls with them once a week and they'll tell you like, hey, these are the stats so far. These are how many emails we've collected. This is kind of like the brand we've built for you, right? Like, yeah, if you want to work with an agency, go for it. You don't have to do any work. However, if you want to work with a consultant, be mindful that we expect you to put in the work too, right? Like people come to me and they're like, oh, you consult, you just consult and coach. You don't do any of the you don't actually do all the work for me. You don't do every single thing. I'm like, well, if I priced like an agency, I probably would, but I don't. And you're here because, you want that knowledge and you want that crowdfunding kind of like expertise and you're doing the hard work. And so a lot of people come to me and they're like, no, I don't want to do the hard work. I'm like, why are you here? That's another thing too. A lot of crowdfunding creators I guess a lot of entrepreneurs, not crowdfunding creators. Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs don't know that crowdfunding is hard work, right? It's really hard work, guys. It's like super hard work. Imagine like I think the average my mother-in-law is here and she's just saying hi to my dog. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, the average, I think the average like salary and annual income for someone in the US is what, $35,000 or something? Let's Google it, average US income. Okay, the average US income is $59,000. Okay, cool. So imagine this. If you're trying to raise $50,000 in 30 freaking days on Kickstarter or on Indiegogo, that's a lot of work, right? You're doing a year's worth of work in a very short freaking time. And so you should be prepared to do really hard work. You should be prepared to work freaking hard to bring this project to life. There's no way you're going to be able to just like coast and wish and hope. Crowdfunding creators that I've worked with, they work their butts off. They have like, not only like, some people have like full-time jobs and they work on this at night for hours just to bring it to life just because they believe in it so much, right? They believe in it. They've been like, or some people have taken like a leave from their work because they believe in their project so much. And they're like, okay, I'm going to focus my time and energy on doing this and just making this happen. Other people, save up or something. And then they're like, okay, it's time that I'm going to like try to quit my job, leave my job. I'm going to focus on this full time. And if it doesn't work, sure, I'll just go back or like find another job. But what they do is that they have this mentality and this mindset where they just go all in their head, right? Like there's nothing that stops them in their path. And they work freaking hard. They work so hard. They work out like so many hours per day. And so if people come up to me and they're like, I don't really want to work that hard. I just want this to come to the market. It kind of hurts me because like it's kind of offensive to other people who have come before them, who have spent so much of their like kind of blood, sweat, and tears pretty much to make their projects come to life. Another thing that I guess just I thought about is that so we talked about like working hard, right? But if you're not prepared to just like do the work, I really wouldn't recommend crowdfunding for you. Yeah. Okay. So and I also, sorry, it's kind of getting me kind of flustered. Before working with a crowdfunding agency, consultant, expert, coach, whatever you want to call all of us that help people in the crowdfunding space, before you do that, I'd also recommend to just like read as much about crowdfunding as possible, and not only read about crowdfunding, but also back campaigns, right? That's kind of one of the first things I tell people to do. Do you know anything at all about crowdfunding? Have you read anything about crowdfunding? Have you backed a campaign? Because like people who back campaigns know what it's like from the backer side, know what it's like to kind of like anticipate an update. They know what it's like to like see like new additions. They know what it's like to see like a stretch goal. They know what it's like to like patiently wait for a product to come to their doorstep or be sent via email or whatever, right? If they don't do that, if they don't know that, they don't understand the psyche behind a crowdfunding backer. And it's a very specific group of people. Crowdfunding backers are the type of people who are super gung-ho about the product. They're like in the early adopter product curve, they're like all the way to the left where they're like super duper backers where they just are paying for stuff that doesn't exist yet, right? Typically when a new product comes to market, there's a product adoption curve that marketers talk about where there's like early super fans and then like the big general market takes a hold of it and then it becomes like the super like old laggards that kind of get onto it. So for example, like let's talk about like Instagram. Instagram had a lot of super early fans and then the giant market started to kind of adopt it, and then other people, like maybe older people, are like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. My granddaughter's there. Let's like get on it now." And so every product that gets released to the market has that. People on crowdfunding are like the super early people who are just paying for stuff that doesn't exist, right? So that's a really gung-ho group of people. And they're super passionate about this. Yeah, when people come to me, I'm like, have you backed a campaign? Because you need to know who these people are. You need to know what their mindset is. You need to understand what they're like looking for, what they're waiting on, what they're expecting. right? Another thing is, have you read about crowdfunding? A lot of people come to crowdfunding, they just hear that, oh, crowdfunding is a great way to make money, right? It's a great way to just raise money. And I'm like, okay, have you read anything about crowdfunding? You know, kind of like, do you know how hard it is? Firstly, have you read about how hard it is? Do you know kind of what community building is? And generally, do you know any of this? Because like, it's important for the entrepreneur to kind of internalize that, because at the end of the day, right, I've launched products on crowdfunding. I've launched products off of crowdfunding. I've launched products in like multiple platforms. At the end of the day, the things you do to launch a product on crowdfunding is literally what everyone else does when they launch products on other platforms. And so if you learn how to launch a product on crowdfunding, if you kind of get into the mindset of learning the steps to actually, the mechanical steps to launch a product in this way, by taking in feedback, by preparing your assets early, by building community, by doing all these things, you're set for life on any other launches that you want to do in and outside crowdfunding. You can do the exact same process on Shopify. You can do the exact same process on Amazon Launchpad. You can do exact same process every single place. And so when people come in and they don't want to learn the process, they don't care about the process, they just want to be this like visionary, you know, it's not attractive. It's not attractive. Anyways, yeah, well, this turned into like a who shouldn't work in crowdfunding, who shouldn't do crowdfunding campaigns, which I think, you know, I haven't talked about this much, but it's important. It's important that, you know, since I've been in crowdfunding for so long now, I've seen people who are not from like the agency and also from like the consultant side, people are not great at crowdfunding. I've also seen creators who are just kind of like not the greatest, people who don't have the greatest mindset when it comes to why they're using crowdfunding. And so I think this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, but I never talked about. So I'm glad this call I was on earlier kind of brought the stream of consciousness to me. And yeah, so I think a lot of people still need to talk about like who should not use crowdfunding, because it's so important, because crowdfunding isn't right for everyone. Sure, crowdfunding is used for mostly like physical products, and it's mostly business to consumer, B2C rather than B2B. It's like, yeah, sure, all those like physical stuff we can talk about, but it's also kind of like the mindset that you're in and what you can expect in crowdfunding that kind of either puts you in the camp where you should use crowdfunding and puts you in the camp that you shouldn't use crowdfunding. And not a lot of people talk about that. So I'm glad that this is kind of like spurring this kind of train of consciousness. So, you know, if you have any questions about what you should be reading or what you should be kind of doing to prepare yourself in terms of mindset for crowdfunding, what kind of things you should know, you know, first you just back a campaign, back a project. Just back multiple projects, back someone in Indiegogo, back someone in Kickstarter, just see which ones like kind of float your boat, just back them and see what's up, right? Another thing I would really recommend doing is just start reading lots of things about crowdfunding, and also just watching videos like this about crowdfunding, so you learn more about the psyche behind it, kind of like the types of backers, the type of strategies, the tactics, just so you know if this is something that you want to be doing too. All right, so one place is obviously, go check out the Crush Crowdfunding blog. I've been blogging for years now, and there's like hundreds of articles on there just for you to just read and just understand more about crowdfunding. If you want to go deeper into that, you can just go to the resources page on Crush Crowdfunding and just look through the resources and grab one of the books, right, that I've written for crowdfunding. Trying to figure out if this is the right thing for you. If you want to put in the hard work, if you want to, talk to a community, if you want to take the time to find a community, if you want to do all this. If you don't, then, there's other channels, there's other avenues. Crowdfunding is not the end all be all for anyone, for anything, right? It's just one step in this giant process of bringing products to life. So yeah, I guess we went through like 4 different things about crowdfunding is right for you or not. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Crush Crowdfunding podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful in any way, be sure to leave a review so that other people will have an easier time finding this crowdfunding content. I hope that this podcast was helpful in your crowdfunding journey, and I can't wait for you to go out and crush it. Thanks for listening to the Crush Crowdfunding podcast at crushcrowdfunding.com. Tune in the same time next week for more ways to crush your launch.